Did you tell Corey that story?
I didn't know.
The lady that used to work
Yes,
at the
she did.
post
Thank
office
you.
up here at Pinegrim, she's an older woman, and she was in Walmart, and she kept noticing this black woman kind of follow her. She thought she was kind of following her around, because every time she turned around, she was around her. But she followed her to her car, and they followed her home up here. And when she went in her house and attacked her, she wrestled her to the ground. They took her credit card. She took her credit card and made her give her PIN number. And there was two people in the same day, huh?
Yeah, she got another woman in Searcy
Yeah.
that morning.
Yeah, and it was an older woman. They beat her up. And I guess there was like 2 or 3 black guys in the car with her then. And but she told that woman started to go to the door and get, you know, a picture of the car and stuff. And she said, I wouldn't. They have guns if I was you. They have guns.
Did they ever catch him?
Yeah, the
They got-
lady at the bank
No.
told me today that they caught them. She said either going over into Mississippi or Louisiana, one of
They
those.
were
One of
going to
those.
Mississippi, mine so
Well,
well.
got
Yeah.
Hopefully they
ridiculous.
Yeah.
You must be a football fan. You must be a football fan.
Oh, no.
No,
I was
no,
just
okay,
thinking,
yeah.
wherever she wanted to go, if it was
Yeah,
out of
just-
Arkansas.
Up here, yeah.
Good with it.
I'm glad they caught him. That's
Well, everyone, be sure to check your surroundings from now on.
yeah, that's what they said.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, my son
Yeah.
called me, was it the week before last, and told me about.
That happened the day before Thanksgiving. That's when that all happened.
I have even seen. I saw a thing on there where they posted and said, if you hear if you get in your car and you start it and you start to back out or something from the parking lot, if you hear like a popping sound, not to get out of your car, because they're placing like pop bottles like this where you can hear it pow.
Yeah, Angel was
You
telling me
think
that
there's
too.
something wrong with the
Yeah.
car? Yeah, I
Yeah.
reposted it. So
Yeah, then you get out and look
Yeah.
underneath, and then they jump right in and just take off with their vehicle.
yeah.
It's amazing, why can't we be as smart as the crooks?
Trying to
I'm
go
so
from
dumb.
behind.
I
We
don't
ain't got
know.
time to
Because we don't
think
think
about
that way. Because we don't
Yep,
think that
exactly. Yep.
Those things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not that they're smart, it's just that they're,
He's sitting there, he's like shaking his head. Yep.
we don't think that way, so.
No.
Just starts playing.
Until we're
Was
forced
it
to.
Tupac's
Yeah.
version of Every Breath You Take? Yeah, like every move
He said, have
you
you heard
make.
it? I was like,
I mean, I actually seen that video.
I need to scroll back up and find that again.
It's hilarious. It's awesome. Well, I apologize. I forgot to update the bulletin as far as like the prayer list, and I realized that on Sunday when I was going through the prayer list, yeah, it wasn't updated. And when I looked at, no, that was my fault. I should have sent you the updated list of names and everything that we took last Sunday and the Sunday before. But I go ahead and write them down, and I'll be sure to send it to go in through the email so we can get that
I like it when you
updated.
put it on the back of the Penguin Proclamation. Everybody reads that,
Okay,
and
so
it won't have to be in the bulletin. if you
Okay.
wanna-
okay, I'll do that. But I mean, I already went ahead and sent you the proclamation, but I will revise it.
okay.
No. I'll revise it and I'll send you a new one.
I mean, I don't mind putting in the bulletin at all, it's just that I'm dumb. I don't keep it. I try. I make
You
notes
got your
and I
hands
lose
full.
them.
You got your hands full.
But some of the names that were on the list were the Kaga family over in Africa. With the passing of Bernard, they are members of the church, and Bernard Kaga was a well-known gospel preacher at the time, and he has brought so many souls to Christ through his preaching. And he passed on, I should say, to his reward a couple weeks ago. And so we need to be praying for the family for comfort and for love and support.
Was it COVID?
I don't think so. No.
CAGA.
Kagaga.
Is what is the deal in search, the truth, they send out all the literature to the preachers and folks over in
Truth for Today. Mm-hmm.
Is it Truth for Today?
Yeah.
I started to say that and then I thought, no, that's a TV show.
It's Truth for Today.
Yeah, it's Truth for Today.
Okay.
Yeah. What
I
happened?
think they said something about that in something they said.
Oh, yes. Yeah, and their newsletters, yeah, they did
Yeah.
mention that in their newsletters. Yeah, and it's all over, World Video Bible School and all over social media as well. And he was very well known in the Brotherhood. Also, at least as far as asking for updates on Joe Schwartz and Bill Halter.
Joe Schwartz, as far as his health, he's doing much better. He
Okay.
got out of the hospital. They pumped a lot of that fluid off his joints, and he's getting around now.
Schwartz, yeah.
But he still needs prayers for his spiritual. So.
Okay. What about Bill Halter?
Oh, the cop?
Mhm.
He's doing fine. He's doing pretty good. I've talked to him a couple of times in the last 2 days.
Okay, great.
Today and yesterday, and he said
Okay.
he was doing just fine.
Okay, well, that's good because I haven't seen him around the community lately, so I wasn't too sure about his condition.
Bill Hood?
Yep.
The cop,
Yeah, the officer. Yeah, Bill.
Oh,
Yeah.
our
I thought you
police
said
officer.
Halter.
Yeah.
It's Martin, isn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Just
Martin.
know it's Bill.
I think that's something.
Martin.
Where did I get Halter from?
I don't know if you sound like me now.
I think it's contagious, don't you?
Yeah.
Also, let's not forget about the Douglas family. Dean was an officer that was working the parade in Little Rock a few weeks ago, and he died on the, not parade, marathon. Yeah, it was the bike marathon in Little Rock a couple weeks ago. Yeah, and so something stuck out and got caught in his bike, and he tumbled over and was pronounced dead on site. So we need to be praying for the Douglas family for comfort. How's Linda? How's Doris doing?
Well, we thought she was doing great, but she's had a little bit of a setback. She's having, she has an infection, and so that stopped the therapy until she gets better. So just prayers for continued improvement.
Okay.
What was her name?
Doris Vernon.
Trish, how's Finley doing?
He's blind.
He's blind. Sorry to hear that.
It's no full smoke though.
But I bet he does good, doesn't he?
He's learning, he knows his home, but he's hesitant when he has to go down the stairs, like where he remembers, and so I have to kind of keep my leg nearby him. I mean, just can't rearrange furniture anytime soon.
They do good.
He's resilient.
And I know that Sister Dot, she has an appointment tomorrow over at the doctor's, and so prayers that it goes well. They're not sure if really they can do anything, but it's just gonna be somewhat of an updated appointment to see how she's doing. But I mean, she's able to talk great. She's able to hold her teeth in. She's in a wheelchair. She's able to get around in the wheelchair, but I mean, her legs are just not working at all. Yeah. But she's in high spirits, though. She's in very high spirits when I went to go see her. So just be praying for her. That's all the updates that I have. Lyndon, Rose gave me an update saying that things are just still the same. He's continuing to recover on his bed, day by day. But other than that, that's all the updates that I have. Is there any other updates that need to be mentioned or any requests that need to be added? If not, I'll go ahead and open us up in a word of prayer. Then we will begin our Bible study. Will pray with me. Heavenly Father, we come before you and we just thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity that we're able to gather this evening and to study another portion of your word through the book of Ecclesiastes, where we can be able to enjoy this life. We can enjoy the good and positive pleasures of this life when we are able to have you in our life. And as we dive into the study tonight, let us be able to pull and draw out some more application and lessons that we can learn from the text. And as we begin, let us just truly be continuing on praying and thinking about our loved ones that we've been praying for, the Kaga family, Joe Schwartz and his salvation of his soul, Bill Martin, the Douglas family, Doris Vernon, Little Finley, and Sister Dot Humphreys, and all those that we have on our prayer list that we have just been diligently praying for, continually be praying for, and we just want to lift them all up to you at this time, into your hands, because we know that through your hand, we pray to the God whose hand controls the universe, and you are the God who sees all things and knows all things, and you are the God who cares for his children. So we want to lift them all up and to put them into your care, Father, and it's our prayer through your Son's name, Jesus. Amen. All right, well, we are going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 2, beginning at verse 4. Let's go ahead and have a little bit of a quick review. What is the theme of the book of Ecclesiastes?
Vanity.
Vanity, vexation, futility. And what is the definition of vanity or vexation or futility? Empty, worthless, meaningless, and my favorite definition, without redeeming value. Without redeeming value, or that which has no redeeming value whatsoever. And last week we picked up in chapter 1, verse 16 through 18, the end of chapter 1. And what was Solomon's discussion there?
Knowing too much causes sorrow.
Mm-hmm. Knowing too much causes sorrow.
Knowledge, yeah.
And so man, in other words, he says, has failed to utilize wisdom to his own benefit. You can learn as much as you like, but I mean, is it going to bring any satisfaction?
To no avail.
No, it's no avail. And actually, he says it's the opposite. The more knowledge that you gain, the more sorrow and grief that you have, because why?
Because you can't fix it.
Yeah.
Because you can't fix it. Exactly. You can't fix all of, the world's problems. And when you learn about how reality is, how life is, and how mankind acts and lives and behaves, you read about all the natural disasters that occur, and it brings a lot of heartache. A lot of sorrow, and a lot of grief. And so he says man has just failed to utilize wisdom to his own benefit. And then we briefly looked into the first 3 verses of chapter 2, where he is continuing his testing of the thesis, is all vanity? And we looked at the first 3 verses, and what did he say?
Laughter and folly will fail.
Yes.
Find pleasure.
Laughter, folly, and wine do not succeed. Man has failed to find value in pleasure. So right now he's looking at all the pleasures, and he's using the word pleasure, again, generally speaking, not just sensual, but also generally speaking. There's, earthly pleasures that we can enjoy, that we can benefit from in a godly-like manner, if that's how it's used, in a godly-like manner. But it also can be abused from time to time, and that's what it seems to do with those who see life without God in it. They take advantage and abuse these pleasures, and in the end, it all comes up empty. I mean, it's only so much that you can enjoy until it finally comes to an end, and then there's no more satisfaction. I was doing a little bit of reminiscing and nostalgia, as you might like it, looking back at all the wonderful, funny TV shows that I grew up with in the 90s, and there was one particular called All That. All That. And it's a show where it has a bunch of teenagers where they get on there and they just do a lot of hilarious skits. And there's one skit that's known as the Not a Problem Family. And it's a family where are just clumsy people, and they just destroy everything in their path. And after they destroy it, they just get up and they just go, not a problem. And so they're known as the Not a Problem Family. Well, I remember in one episode where they were at a pizza parlor and they just destroyed the entire pizza parlor. And at the end of it, there was just one pizza that was left. And so they all just sat down, they started eating, and out of nowhere, the daughter starts boo-hooing. And they're like, what's wrong? And she goes, oh, it's just that this pizza is just so delicious, and soon the pizza's going to be gone, and all that deliciousness will come to an end. And then they all just start crying and everything, and that's how the show ended. And it was just funny skits like that. And so no matter the pleasures and the deliciousness of this, the things of this world have, it's going to contain no value because it doesn't last. It doesn't last at all. And so as far as laughter goes, laughter doesn't last forever. Foolishness, and he says wine, he goes, that stuff it does not succeed at all. It doesn't last. It has no redeeming value. And so, is it bad to laugh? No. What kind of laughter is he talking about? Laughter that has no value, in other words. Later on, as I said in chapter 7, he's going to talk about the laughter of fools, things that we shouldn't laugh at, but yet we still laugh at times. And so we'll get to more of that when we get to that chapter. But as we continue on, picking up in verse 4, now in verse 4 through 8, he's going to discuss about a bunch of activities. He says activities that fail to provide answers. He says even all the activities, all the projects that we do in this world cannot answer life's toughest question. And what is that question that Solomon's trying to answer?
Why are we here?
Why are we here? What is the meaning and purpose of life? He says even all these activities and projects that we do, they fail to provide that answer to life's toughest question. And so can I get somebody to go ahead and read verse 4 through 8?
I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted them in all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had slaves who were born in my house. I had also great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself silver and gold and the treasures of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines, the delights of the sons of man.
All right, thank you. All right, so let's back up real quick with verses 4 through 6. The preacher says that he has made, or other versions may say, enlarged in many works. Many works. Specifically, he says, my works. Now, that is referring to projects, activities, or endeavors, lifelong works that you've been putting together that you're trying to finish and accomplish. Enlarge means to magnify, to have a great overabundance of. And it's the same word that's used for the word great back in chapter 1, verse 16. Indeed, these were great projects that Solomon was putting together. He listed various categories of works that he did, including objects he built or obtained for himself. He invested in these works with the intent of discovering which, if any, are good and worthwhile for the people of the earth to do. Go back to verse 3. So I want you to notice that in verse 4 through 8, notice the repetition of the pronouns I, me, my, and myself.
All about him.
Mm-hmm. He uses the pronoun I 11 times in verse 4 through 8. He uses me and my 1 time each. And then he uses the word myself 6 times. So they appear a total of 19 times just here in chapter 2, verse 4 through 8. So what'd you say it was about?
All about him.
It was all
Vanity.
about him. Selfishness and self-service are the focus here. Now, certainly, Solomon would have said that this is an investigative project that was all about him. Now, it's true that his goal in this is to try to find something that is worthwhile for man to do while they're here and to answer life's toughest questions, but it seems that he didn't want any help. He wanted to do it all himself. For the first two categories...
All the pleasure to yourself, I guess, if he found it.
Yeah. And I mean, when you think about it, you know, he's also has the position of a king. I mean, a king who really is
High position.
in high position and can just do almost just about whatever he wishes. And that time it seems that he was above the law, at least man's law, but he wasn't above God's law. And we'll see that later on, because at the end of verse 8, he says that he gathered a lot of many concubines.
With the position that he was in, you would think that he had the ability to have all those things to start with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In abundance.
Mm-hmm.
So, did he not have all of that before, or he just...
He just
kept getting more and more and more to see if it was gonna make any difference. If it was,
absolutely. And I mean, he had all the resources that he needed, all the the gold and the money and everything. I mean, to do these things. Now the question is, why did he keep building more and more? I mean, why did he keep adding more and more projects? Well, we'll find out in verse 9 through 11, specifically verse 10. It come to find out saying that the only joy that he could find in this was in his labor. Was in his toil. I mean, it kept his hands busy, it kept his mind busy, and it kept him out of trouble. But then he said that once that project's done, I mean, that satisfaction's gone. And then so that's a great question, and that's a great observation that you made, because it is interesting to know that he had all these. I mean, he didn't have to do it himself. He could have hired all these slaves. I mean, he got slaves to do it for him, but he didn't. He wanted to do it himself. It was all about him. It was a self-centered project. And it was projects that he just enjoyed doing. Works and toils and labors that he just enjoyed doing. But he said in the end, once those projects are complete and done, that enjoyment's not there anymore. So I have to make another project. That's finished and complete. Now I got to make another. And so it's then again an endless cycle. An endless cycle, a never-ending story. Exactly. And so the first two categories of work, he said, built houses for himself and planted vineyards for himself. So some of Solomon's great building projects can be found in 1 Kings chapter 6 all the way through chapter 10. First Kings chapter 6 all the way through chapter 10. As well as 2 Chronicles chapter 8, verse 1 through 6.
2 Chronicles what?
Chapter 8, verse 1 through 6. So among the houses that he built for his own pleasure were a grand palace for himself and a palace for Pharaoh's daughter. 1 Kings chapter 7, verse 1 and verse 8. Again, it's 1 Kings chapter 7, verse 1 and verse 8. Now, vineyards were planted, obviously, for what purpose?
Drinking wine.
Drinking wine, there you go, yes. Vineyards were planted for the purpose of fermenting wine and also to establish his own winery. You can look at Song of Solomon, chapter 8, verse 11. It talks about there his own little vineyard for his winery establishment that he made. And you can do a lot of trading with that. And whether trade resources or sell a bunch of wine or to enjoy it for your own pleasure. And so furthermore, he had made gardens and parks for himself. Now, great gardens were common among great kings during the ancient times, who prided themselves in having beautiful places for relaxation and for retreat, where they can just isolate themselves and kind of gather their thoughts and to just admire the beautiful scenery. Now, parks were sometimes built in the garden areas like those that are mentioned again in Song of Solomon, chapter 6, verse 2 and verse 11. Song of Solomon, chapter 6, verse 2 and 11. And here's also something that's very interesting. The Hebrew word for parks is pronounced pardis. Pardis, which is where we get our word for
Partial.
paradise.
Oh,
Yeah, paradise.
okay, for parks.
Yeah, for parks. Yeah, it's the Hebrew word pronounced pardis, which is where we get our word for paradise. All kinds of fruit trees were planted in these parks. That's very interesting. I wonder how Solomon came up with that.
That's the beginning when God created.
That's right. The beginning when God
That's what
created.
Adam and Eve dwelled in.
That's right. I mean, with trees that had all kinds of fruits. All kinds of fruits. And for us, how have we butchered that word park? It's got a little atrium or some little walking trails and some swings and playgrounds for the kids, and then boom, there you go, we have a park.
Yeah.
No fruit tree anywhere.
No fruit tree anywhere. That's it. I mean, there's no fruit tree anywhere.
But weren't the fruit trees for the people that were hungry?
Yes.
I think
That's right.
what grapes and like figs and stuff like that were part of that was their main staple. A lot of
Oh,
main
yeah, the
staple and stuff too.
Yeah, I mean, the grapes were definitely found within the vineyards, and well-known fruits of the time were apricots. Apricots were very, very popular and very tasteful to people during the ancient times. And so, like, our apricot today is somewhat of a mainstream for them during that time, was the apricot fruit. And so I'm sure without a doubt, a lot of the trees in those parks would be made up of apricot trees.
When you stop and think about it too, a vineyard is also pretty.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the soil and
You take care of it, yeah.
leaving and all that kind of stuff is really pretty.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something pretty to look at, yeah.
So then he says, I made ponds of water for myself. Now, other versions may have the words,
Myself.
pools. Does anybody have reservoirs? I figure King James probably would have had reservoirs.
Which verse was that one?
This right here.
They made me pools of water.
Pools of water. Okay, I think most versions would have either pools or ponds.
Yeah.
But some versions would have reservoirs, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But he said that he'd done it for himself. He'd done it for himself, emphasizing the self-centered nature of these projects. So the water had a specific purpose, he said, to irrigate a forest of growing trees. Now, such an enterprise would require large amounts of water.
Especially when it's considered called a forest.
Yep. Yeah, to irrigate a forest,
Yeah.
a forest of growing trees.
Forest is a lot of trees.
That's absolutely. And then so he would need
A lot of
hefty,
water.
yes, hefty amounts of water, a lot of water. Well, what's interesting is that southwest of Jerusalem in Bethlehem, in the valley of Ardis, are 3 stone pools that are traditionally known as the Pools of Solomon, according to the historian Josephus in his work called Antiquities. In ancient times, transporting water was a great engineering feature that made use of irrigation channels and canals. I was about to say channels and canals. Yeah, channels and canals. So he had these projects that kept him busy. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
Very busy. Well, that's not it. He continues on in verse 7. I bought male and female slaves, and I had slaves born at home. I also possessed flocks and herds larger than all who preceded me in Jerusalem. So Solomon accumulated male and female slaves to operate his large estates. You can go back and reference 1 Kings chapter 9, verse 1 through 5. 1 through 5, and as well as verse 15 and verse 20 and 21.
Also, probably after he bought them, and he says, I had slaves born at home.
Mm-hmm.
That meant that they belonged to him, born on his property, and
Correct.
he didn't have to buy any.
Correct. I'm glad you made that observation, because keep in mind that he does specify two specific kinds of slaves. Ones that he had bought, and ones that were what? Born.
On his property.
Born.
So therefore he owned them
Yes. So
already.
correct. So they were born from parents that were slaves that he had bought. And Exodus chapter 21, verse 2 through 11, details the law regarding slaves. It says a Hebrew slave could serve for 6 years, but was to be freed on the 7th year. Why the 7th year?
I remember, but I won't come. My words won't come to. You freed them on the 7th year, and I don't know what it was called.
Okay. Oh, it sounded like you're about to say
Spit
it.
it out.
It sounded like you're about to say it. Okay, last week there was a parade going on in Searcy. It was Jubilee. There you go. It was the year of Jubilee. Yes, the year of Jubilee. But now, any children born during that time belong to the master. So think of it like this. On the 6th year, parents that gave birth to a child,
They would be freed. but
they would be
their
freed.
Babies weren't.
Yes,
Their children weren't.
that's right. And so they'd be freed the next year, while the children or the babies would have to wait 7 more years until the next 7th year, at least that is. And so I can't imagine the dread of a parent knowing that they're not going to be able to see their child for 7 more years. But anyway, Solomon thought that he would at least try such a concept to buying and purchasing male and female slaves and having slaves born at his home. So he's often wondered that if the ownership of people may provide supreme joy or satisfaction. Well, he thought that he would try it anyways. But he found that having slaves does no more for the benefit of man than any of the other pleasures. So, no, it didn't give any supreme satisfaction or lasting satisfaction at all. In addition, he amassed flocks and herds. Now, flocks refer to smaller livestock such as sheep and goats, and herds would prefer much larger farmer animals such as what? Oxen. Wait, what? Horses, camels, donkeys, swine, pigs. Well, actually, no, they didn't like the pigs. I forgot. Yeah, they were dirty. The pigs were dirty. Yeah, so I mean, they didn't harvest them at all. But yes, and so maybe just amassing large amounts of animals could probably bring some satisfaction in his life, because animals were generally the measuring stick for wealth in ancient times. And Solomon had more than anyone else who had lived in Jerusalem before him. You can look at 1 Kings chapter 4, verse 23, 22 and 23. 1 Kings 4, 22 and 23.
But he would have had to have slaves or people who worked for him to do all this. One person could not have done all this.
I know.
Right.
Yeah,
No way.
absolutely. Yeah, but I mean, he was overseeing the project. I mean, he was in charge of it, and so I'm sure, without a doubt, I mean, he put the slaves like to work.
He sure did an awful lot for all those years to find out that he wasn't that type of man in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, he was, as we said once before, this was an in-depth study that he
Yes.
went into.
Mhm.
Well, definitely,
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, and his goal was for what?
To find what brought him pleasure.
To find what brought him pleasure. To answer life's toughest question. What is
Why am I
the
here?
yes, why am I here? What is the meaning of life? I mean, is there anything that can bring lasting joy, lasting satisfaction? But so far, nope. He says there's all this stuff has no lasting value, no redeeming value whatsoever.
But he doesn't mention to us that all of these things are going to bring you problems.
Yep.
Whatever you own, you
Yeah.
own a bunch of
Yeah.
houses,
Yep.
it's going to bring you problems. If you own a bunch of slaves, there's going to be problems.
Yep. Absolutely. Now, I mean, is there anything wrong? Again, I just want to state the fact in case if, again, Solomon at this point, he's coming from the perspective of someone who's looking at life without God, but I still need to state the fact in case if somebody gets confused that it's not wrong to have cattle or oxen or sheep or goats or herd of animals or anything. The problem is into thinking that this is what's going to bring you everlasting joy. Yeah.
To have an abundance of it.
Yes. And so instead, it's going to bring you problems. If you can't keep this stuff in check, it's going to bring you problems. And sure enough, it brought him problems right there in verse 8. I amassed for myself riches, silver and gold, and the treasure of kings and provinces. I provided for myself, male and female singers, and the pleasure of the sons of mankind, many concubines. Now, if the number of animals that he had possessed did not convince one of Solomon's tremendous wealth, the precious metals he owned would. He spoke of collecting silver and gold, and the silver and gold were part of the treasures of the kings and provinces which he had received through warfare or through peace treaties or through tributes and whatnot. 1 Kings chapter 10. Enormous quantities of gold were brought to Solomon from sailing the expeditions to Ophir, which is 1 Kings chapter 9, verse 26 through 28. On top of that, he acquired for himself male and female singers. Many today think that music or entertainment is one source of real joy and satisfaction.
And it is.
And it is. But is it lasting joy and satisfaction?
Till your song's over.
Until the song's over, yep. Solomon thought that he would try it and see, what benefits, it could bring. With his great wealth and influence, he had the resources to assemble the finest singers in the land. But, like you said, Trish, only when the song was over is when he realized that satisfaction's gone. Poof, just like that. Finally, Solomon addressed the pleasures of the sons of mankind, many concubines. The translation of the Hebrew phrase, many concubines, is pronounced this, Shedah Shedoth. Shedah Shedoth. Now, this translation of this Hebrew phrase has been disputed for a while, since the word Shedah only appears here in the Hebrew text. Instead, some of the versions that you'll read would have many instrumental musics. Doesn't King James have that?
Yes.
Yep. So does the New King James Version, as well as the American Standard 1901 version. Those three translate it to be musical instruments of all kind. However, it is doubtful that the pleasures of men would be a large collection of musical instruments. Based on post-biblical usage of the Hebrew word Shedah, Other versions use the phrase chest upon chest. I don't think there's much in musical instruments that do a chest upon chest. But what does involve chest upon chest? I don't think we need to say it out loud. Well, you can be able to do that with many concubines, right? So nevertheless, it seems best to accept the reading, many concubines. Despite the law's prohibition against multiplying wives, Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 17, Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 3.
Who needs that many?
I know. Now, the concubine at that time was considered a mistress or a secondary wife. Kind of depends on the king himself if he wants to see this to be as a mistress for his secondary, pleasures that he would like satisfied. Other times it would be for political purposes, marrying into another royal family to bring peace among nations, a bunch of other
Acquire more property.
yeah, to require more property, absolutely. And so there's many other involvements and ways as to why one would, I guess, have a lot of concubines or other wives. But Solomon immersed himself in every pleasure imaginable. He had 1,000 women to satisfy every sensual desire. Yet these women caused him to fall away from God. Problems.
Exactly.
1 Kings chapter 11, verse 4 through 8.
Not only that, I mean, he's going to need all that stuff to provide for him.
Oh, absolutely. So, folks, what is the lesson right here? What is the life lesson from verse 4 through 8?
Nothing on this earth is going to give you joy like joy in heaven. It's not restful down here.
Yes,
It's earth,
Yeah.
earthly.
earthly things.
The only joy that you're going to have it's a heavenly joy.
That's right. That is the only joy that lasts. It's a joy that cannot be taken away. I mean, you put your life on the line for God, and yes, I mean, they can take all your possessions, all the things that you have and own of this world, they can take them away. But the joy that you have in God, they cannot take that away from you. They don't have the power to do that. It is only when we choose to let go of that joy. And so,
And Paul is such a great example of that. He had nothing in prison.
yep.
And yet Philippians is beautiful.
Mhm.
Rejoice. And again, I
Yeah.
say rejoice.
I'm glad you brought that up because this coming Sunday, if the Lord wills, our lesson is going to be on Philippians 4, 14 through 20. Yeah.
Corey, a lot of people are still thinking along these lines. They're trying to reach out after these things still to this day,
Yes.
and thinking
Yep.
that brings it. But a lot of people don't have the wisdom to realize that that's not it, and they continue on seeking out after it their whole life. I watched a basketball game last night. It was called the Jimmy V Classic. I don't know if you've heard of. Jimmy V had terminal cancer, and he didn't have long to live. He went through some treatment and stuff, and then he gave this big speech at the, sports awards ceremony or whatever. And it's one of the most famous speeches,
In the sports world?
in the sports world anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And he basically was trying to give people advice for how to live. He said, you need to laugh every day. You need to spend some time meditating every day. And there was some third one, I don't remember what it is. It's not important. The point is, none of those things had any lasting value.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of finished by saying, cancer can kill my body, but it can't take my mind and my heart and my soul. Which I thought, hey, he's going with the resurrection. I like where this is headed. This is a good speech. he's fixing to point everyone to Jesus Christ, you know, for how that's done. You know, that's one of the big things that brings me to Christ, the resurrection from the dead. I can get off this world. I can be reunited, you know, with God. Never got there. You know,
Oh man,
the speech ended, and people praise that speech. I mean, just the whole night. They're trying to raise money for it. The foundation is what it is, but people praise that speech, and they live by it. You know, since then, it's just kind of sad.
Yeah, that is sad. But that's the life lesson right here, just from these, you know, verses, verse 4 through 8, is that, you know, the things of this world, the materialistic things of this world, cannot buy happiness or satisfaction. And yet, as he pointed out, I mean, we live in a society where people still, they look towards those things. And what's sad is that, I mean, of course, you know, it's our duty for them to be able to share with them that joy and that peace that surpasses all understanding, that lasts forever, that's eternal, that others can't take away from you. But sometimes when we do share that with them, they still reject it.
We've got to have an open heart. And people that have made money their God don't have an open heart. They're not ready to listen to that. They already worship something, and that's the silver and the gold.
See, and that's the thing. That's what happens when you get too caught up and too focused on this materialistic world that we live in, is because you then are starting to live in the, I can see it, I can feel it, I can touch it, then this is it. Oh, but God, I can't see him, I can't feel him, I can't touch him. I mean, so that can't be it. And so they immediately reject that, and they go for the things that they can see, feel, and touch. But yet,
They're all going for the happiness, you know, what makes them happy, what they think is going to make them happy.
Well, they think if
But
I
you
just have a little
can't-
more,
Yeah.
or I've got a lot,
Or
but if I
something
just have
this,
a little
or
more.
something different, you know, or
Or
whatever
something
makes
new
them
comes
do.
along, that's gonna
But-
be the thing.
Nobody, I don't think, until you become a true child of God, they're not gonna, I don't think they're ever gonna feel that joy at all.
but I will say that they can actually see it when it's manifested through you and I.
I used to use an example when I was
They
in
have to
college
be.
that I had an agnostic friend that I tried throughout the whole tenure of my studies to convince him that God existed. He's like, I believe that there's an Almighty, but I don't believe that Jesus was the Son. And I said, we were trying to explain anyway. I used the pen drop, and I said, because we're kind of like into the scientist part of it. And I said, you know, the pen drop, you know, gravity exists. You don't see it though.
Yep.
And so that was the analogy I used, and he kind of was bumfuzzled, like, point, but I mean, it still didn't convince him because he was raised that way. But that was one of the examples I used. You can't see it. People believe gravity exists. Apple falls out of the tree, hits us in the head when we're mowing, or.
Absolutely, I like that. That's a great analogy. I mean, because the law of gravity does exist, even though that we can't see it. You know, the law of oxygen. You know, I mean, being able to breathe. I mean, you can't see air. I mean, unless it's really cold out, and of course.
Have you ever seen the movie God is Alive?
I've seen the movie God's Not Dead.
God's Not Dead, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's one I'm thinking.
Yeah.
1 and 2.
Same idea.
Yeah.
Those are good movies.
Oh, great movies. Yeah, great movies. I heard that one not long ago called God's Not Dead, We the People. Yeah. And it's out on PureFlix. Yeah. Yeah. And so I've been meaning to actually see how much it is a month to have that, because I like to watch it. Yeah, because I mean, they always do a great job with those movies. I mean, of course, you know, doctrinally speaking, I mean, you kind of just have to, you know, spit out the bones and everything. I mean, so doctrinally, they may have it not according to Scripture, but still, I mean, we need more movies next Wednesday if the good Lord wills. But the life lesson: things, materialistic things, cannot buy happiness or satisfaction. Only the eternal joy and peace that we have in God can give us lasting satisfaction and supreme joy. Any other thoughts or comments? closing remarks. Speak now, forever hold your peace. Oh, great lesson, great discussion too. I really enjoyed everyone's input and discussions into the conversation of the study. Okay, well, if I can get Brother Hunter to close us out in prayer, lesson is yours.
Our Father in heaven, we thank you for this great and awesome day. We're thankful for this lesson that we can learn from. We're thankful that we can have godly joy and hope in our lives because of the knowledge of your Son, Jesus Christ. Nobody can take it away. You're holding it and keeping it safe for us, God, and we're thankful for that. We're thankful for the things on this earth that we can enjoy, even though there are many things that do not have lasting value. But as we enjoy this creation that you've made for us, as we give you honor, as we glorify your Son, we are thankful for you meeting our needs, for you providing for us, for you giving us things like laughter that can be enjoyed with fellow brothers and sisters. We're thankful for all those things, but most of all, your love, your grace, and your mercy that you pour out upon us. Ask that you bless us as we leave this place. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen.
Whoever
Brother?
put the pictures of the Christmas party on, I really enjoyed it. It looked like y'all had a great time.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it was a wonderful time.